Ed Szymanski.
Good afternoon, I'm Ed Szymanski. I'm the president of Norfolk County Beekeepers Association, which was one of the clubs that submitted the 8-county framework. One of the things, I sent a note out to our club, an email out asking people to read the draft. And several people came back to me with a comment, which is one that I have too, is that although the applicators, it was written that the pesticide applicators should know where the location of the hives are. And I think in concert with that, the beekeepers would like to know where the pesticides are being used. And people are asking for a central registry that's accessible by the beekeepers of who's using the pesticides, what materials are being used, and when, possibly even what crops, so that beekeepers could look. Because even if you had a registry of where the beehives are actually located, many of us actually, look to place hives on other properties, farms and other properties that we know of, and it would be nice to be able to take a look and see where things are being used, because that might affect our decisions on where we would locate hives. So like I said, I had a number of comments from that, a number of people I talked to, and I know one of them was submitted to you directly about that issue as well. Personally, I think that this draft is deficient in its not mentioning neonicotinoid pesticides specifically, because beekeepers feel that use should be limited, and it really hasn't been mentioned. And a general comment that I would make about the whole thing is that a lot of there aren't really any requirements, things that when you read the role of the applicators or the role of the farmers, then everything's sort of optional, and I think that there should be some stronger language written as far as there's a paragraph that says where possible the materials and chemicals should be used at times when bees aren't foraging, like at night or whatever else. But you give them the option that way. People will say, well, it's not possible, especially like with corn. So if a corn farmer feels that it's necessary to apply a material, even one that's toxic to bees, that has to be done while the corn is flowering, they'll just say it's not possible. And it is. I mean, it is possible to grow these crops without the use of these materials, because people do it. That's all I buy for vegetables and so on. So it is possible. It might be a little bit difficult. It makes some people's lives difficult. But I think the wording has to be stronger to really help us, because the farmers need the bees too. But if they're just making a split decision based on that, and there's no real requirement, and so I think that some of the should and so on should be replaced with shall, and have this looked at a little bit more carefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, just in response to your earlier response to what I said, since I was one of the first to speak and probably said things that other people would have said anyhow, I just want to say that if I gave you the impression that I or a lot of us were focused on neonics or pesticides in general as a quick blame for what's killing our bees, that's not the case. Believe me, we understand. We're dedicated to education of beekeepers. We understand that there are mites and there are viruses and there are, winter nutrition, getting bees through winter just because they run out of food. Planting forage, that's one of the things that I'm sort of devoted. My wife and I have kind of become an obsession about planting. And we do talks everywhere we can to get people to plant more forage, and to identify which plants are most beneficial to bees and that provide the most nectar and pollen to the bees, And also, to have honey. I mean, honey is great. Everybody likes honey. Everybody likes local honey. So people want to produce honey, not necessarily just to make money, but just because it's a nice natural resource, to spread around. And we understand that that there's a bee health issue, a general bee health issue. But we also understand, based on research and based on experience that people in this room have had, that there is an effect that pesticides have on bees. And I only mentioned that I felt that the draft of this framework was deficient in not mentioning neonicotinoids. I'm sort of focused on pesticides in general. I mean, we do some small scale organic, farming at my place. I don't have a lot of land, but I have no grass. Luckily, I live in a town that doesn't care if people have a front lawn or not, because I don't. I have fruits and vegetables and flowers growing in my front lawn, side, back, everywhere. And there's no chemicals that are applied to anything that's grown in my yard. And anything that we don't grow, we supplement with things that we buy from organic farms, that sell in the local farmers markets, so that I know that stuff can be grown without the use of chemicals. So if I made it sound like I was focused on neonics only as a quick fix, whatever, I'm not. I'm against the use of pesticides in general, and I think that, and I certainly wasn't asking you to abandon the use of neonics in favor of things that are even worse. Believe me. So that's all I wanted. I hope I didn't give that impression. Bee health is a big concern. It's a big concern of the clubs. Education is a big concern of the clubs, and I think that there needs to be more communication between farmers and beekeepers. And I think that if some of the chemicals really aren't so bad, you wouldn't be so worried about having a registry. And maybe there's some public education needed too. But if we can register our hives, you can register your chemicals. So I think that's very important. We understand about bee health and about mites and viruses and everything else. There's a lot of information that might indicate that damage done by pesticides makes the bees less resistant to the other pathogens that are present in their hives there. And how are you going to prove that? I don't know. But if we would do away with, if we could do away with mites, if we could write a document that says varroa mites are not allowed in your apiaries, that would be nice, but we can't. But if we could limit the use of the pesticides and possibly increase the overall health of the bees, they could do a better job with fighting off the viruses. And so there's some things that are within your control and some things that aren't.